Bienvenidos al Capítulo 2, Parte 2. So let's go ahead and look at the second part of Chapter 2. And we'll start here with the present tense of the verb ser. This will, we can see this in our textbooks, Mosaico's textbook on page 67, en la página 67. And then we'll give you a more descriptive idea of what we have here. But I always like to point out some general things here in the chapter, and then at a later point, if you have questions, I'm more than happy to explain in depth. And I'm also working on creating videos specifically for more difficult things. So this might become one of those grammatical areas that I create another video for, explaining more in depth how we're going to use this. But I think the book gives a pretty good explanation. So let's look here. So we start off and we see here, yo soy, the conjugation of the verb ser, right? Yo soy, tú eres, él es, ella es, nosotros somos, ellos son, or ellas son. So all we see here is we see, just like we've seen with conjugations in the past, the yo, tú, él, nosotros, ellos, and ellas, okay, that you see in almost all of Latin America, all of Spanish-speaking Latin America, as well as Spain, with the exception here is that we don't focus on vosotros. That's something I tend to leave out, not because Spain is not important, but because for our needs at the beginning level, I think this was really just a better way to simplify the verb conjugations. Okay? So uses of ser, to identify a person, to tell time, to use with adjectives to describe an intrinsic feature of a person, place, or thing. And I'm sorry, there seems to be a little bit of a cutoff here. Okay. Uses of ser continued. To express nationality, él es mexicano, él es de México. To express possession, ¿de quién es la casa? Ah, es de Levi. Express the material of which something is made. El anillo es de oro. Where an event takes place. El concierto es en el estadio. So we saw earlier that location, we tend to use estar with location. So you might ask here, well, why are we using ser? Okay, so remember, this is really only when we're talking about an event taking place. So in this case, a concert. El concierto es en el estadio. Okay, let's continue ahead here. So let's look here, inherent qualities and changeable conditions of ser y estar. And this is going to be on page 71 and 72. Okay, and so we're going to look here, basically we're going to be looking at different uses and comparing the two. So let's go ahead and look at page 70. Piénselo, and this is I included this in your homework activities, okay, your homework assignments that I ask you guys to do and submit in in our modules Dropbox at the end of each week. Okay, so I'm going to include piénselo in here. So I pay attention to this activity, and it gives you several sentences, and you're going to have to pick and distinguish the differences between ser and estar. Okay, and important comparisons to consider are also on the bulletin points of page 70 and 71. Okay, so you'll see a number of bullet points comparing ser y estar, okay, which I think is definitely worth looking at more than once. Possessive adjectives, okay, possessive adjectives, and we start looking at this on page 73 and 74. Okay, en la página 73 y 74. Okay, so this is going to be when we're wanting to express ownership. So we see here, mis clases son en línea, and this should be highlighted. I'm sorry, or in bold, but it's not. Mis clases son en línea. Nuestro profesor de español es muy simpático. Su mamá es vieja y fea. Okay, so we see here on page 74, this is going to give a little bit of description here about our possessive adjectives. Okay? So we see mi, tu, su, nuestro, or if it's a feminine, the feminine form of this is nuestra. And then at the bottom of that, we're going to see vuestro and vuestra. Okay, and so that will be the form that we're not using, that I'm going to eliminate from what we're doing right now, but we'll see this at a later point. Okay. Okay, and that's all for possessive adjectives, but you can see that in detail on page 7. Okay, and on page 76, en la página 76, we're going to be looking at gustar, the verb gustar, expressing likes and dislikes. Okay? And so the book actually goes on to explain briefly how we're going. Let's use this verb here, gustar, in a very simplistic and a very efficient way from the beginning. We don't need to know all of the forms of this verb. It can be very confusing and overwhelming at first. So we're just going to look at I like, or I don't like, or you like, or you don't like. Okay? For both singular and plural objects. So, unfortunately, in Spanish, we can't just say, with the verb gustar, we can't just say, yo gusto pizza. Tu gustas ensalada. Salad, right? We can't say that. Instead, we have to form it using either me or te. So, if we're talking about something singular, we're going to say, and it's something that I like, that's pleasing to me, I can say, me gusta el libro. If it's something I do not like, it's not pleasing to me, I'll then go here and add no before the sentence, producing no me gusta el libro. Okay? If I'm talking about you, okay, directly to you, the second person, I will say, if you like art, I will say, te gusta el arte. If this is something that I'm going to express negatively, I'll then put a no before it, producing, no te gusta el arte. Alright? And we see here that these two A's are going to be in bold. And the reason they're in bold is because we're going to be focusing on one object, okay? El libro, el arte. However, if I'm speaking about things that I like, so multiple things, me gustan los deportes. Or something I do not like, no me gustan los deportes, I'm going to be using the third person plural of gustar, which will be gustan. Okay, the A-N. And you can't see down here below because it is, for whatever reason, the screen is cutting it off. But we see here, ¿te gustan las actividades? Or ¿no te gustan las actividades? So the important thing to take out of here is that the A, the only A by itself, this is actually going to be used when we're just talking about something singular. This right here, the me or the te, all right, these pronouns, these are going to be expressing who it is we're talking about. So if I'm talking about myself, me. If I'm talking about you, then I'm going to be using te. A for singular, an for plural. All right, and we see one more example right here. Gustar, expressing likes and dislikes. And we see here, me gusta ese shampoo. Okay? Me gusta ese shampoo. I like that shampoo, is the English equivalent. The literal meaning is we're saying that shampoo is pleasing to me. Down here below, we see me gustan las personas alegres. I like happy people. Okay? That's the English equivalent. But the literal meaning would be, happy people are pleasing to me. All right? Okay, very good, very good. So there's some more complicated things in this part of chapter 2 that I'll be happy to either discuss in more detail in another video, in an email, or during one of our Skype sessions in my office hours. So if you do need to schedule office hours to discuss anything like this, please send me an email. I'm also looking at working on creating some more videos, but much more in detail on some of the harder grammatical points for this chapter, because it does now seem to be increasing in difficulty. So I'll be working on that. Bueno, hasta la próxima. Nos vemos pronto. Adiós.